Seems the things I've wanted in my life I've never had. So it's no surprise that living only leaves me sad. Happiness, where are you?
Hey, it's me, your boy, Oswald Deluxe. Today, we are going to be doing Happiness from 1998 and its loose sequel, Life During Wartime from 2009, both written and directed by Todd Solondz. And he is one of, if not my favorite director. It always kind of oscillates between Haneke and Solondz. And then now Trey Edward Schultz is coming in and fucking everything up in a good way because he's becoming my favorite director. Only time will tell on that one. But yeah, Todd Solondz is one of my favorite directors, if not my favorite director. Why? Why is Todd Solondz my favorite director? I love him because he tells stories the way he wants to tell them, through his casting, through the subject matter, the taboos that he touches that other filmmakers won't touch, through the setting is always New Jersey, all kinds of things that are uniquely him, and I see those as authentic, and authenticity speaks to me. So for that reason, I love Todd Solondz. I love his sense of humor. I love his worldview, which seeps through his films. Basically, nothing means anything. Life is inherently pointless, and it might be incidentally funny every once in a while, but that's about it. I'll admit that he gets a little pretentious in some of his films, like Wiener Dog, which I need to see again to truly judge it. I have never seen it sober. And Palindromes, which I love it, even though it is a little pretentious, but that movie is as out there as Happiness and Life During Wartime are. Palindromes is 10 times more out there, and it's just more disturbing subject matter than either of these films, in my opinion, and it just kind of goes the distance, but I still love it. But with all that in mind, I think Happiness is probably his best film. I know it's his most critically acclaimed film, and Life During Wartime is kind of like its really weird cousin. Happiness is about loneliness, it's about alienation, told through the veneer of suburbia and the middle-class home life in the U.S. in the late 90s. And Life During Wartime is more of like a meditation on forgiveness, forgiving unforgivable acts. Both of these films are great. I love them both. I endorse them both. Happiness is hard to find. Evidently, there's a DVD on Amazon for $90, but luckily I have it. I mean, you can find it. If you can find a movie, you can find it, but it's not officially available anywhere. I really think it deserves a Criterion physical release, and Life During Wartime has a Criterion physical release, thank goodness. So that's where to find them, and you're going to want to find them because I'm about to spoil the ever-living shit out of both of them, so you definitely want to see both movies before you watch. And just kind of as like a side note, as Life During Wartime is a kind of loose sequel to Happiness, I suggest watching them back to back. Like, there's no reason not to watch them back to back, because I had seen Happiness like when I was 17, and then you watch Life During Wartime when it comes out, and I'd seen them both in between, and like, long story short, I've never really seen these films more than like a year within each other, and there's a lot of characters, there's a lot of stuff to keep track of, and because of the creative casting, Life During Wartime has a completely different cast than Happiness, playing the same characters. So just for continuity's sake, I think it's best to watch these films back to back. You know, I mean, you don't have to sit there in one sitting, but maybe like watch one the next day or that week or whatever. So Happiness came out in 1998, stars Jon Lovitz, Philip Seymour Hoffman, Lara Flynn Boyle, Jane Addams, Dylan Baker, Ben Gazzara shows up. I completely forgot Ben Gazzara's in this movie. And this film just follows these people as they're trying to find their own personal happiness. So a pretty transparent title. And it follows these people who are connected in one way or another. So it opens with Joy, who is kind of a hopeless romantic, and she's breaking up with the Jon Lovitz character. And her sister Helen is being harassed by Alan. Helen is a Hollywood actress. Alan is a weird pervert played by Philip Seymour Hoffman who makes like kind of prank sexual phone calls to get off. And Alan's therapist, Bill, is the brother-in-law of both Helen and Joy. And although Bill is a therapist, he's also a pedophile, and he fantasizes about murder often. So when he's not fantasizing about murder or jerking off to teen boy magazines, he eventually rapes one of his son's friends. Joy continues to chase shitty men throughout the movie. Helen actually meets up with Alan after they've been abusing each other. He had been abusing her through phone calls. She believes she might be into it. They meet. There's no sparks. They meet to no avail. And Billy, who's Bill's son, he just wants to come. His happiness is literally cum shooting out of his wiener. I don't know how monetization works, but this video is not getting it. By the end of the film, Bill is arrested for raping Billy's friend, and the rest of the family moves to Florida, and Billy finally comes. And this film, that's a lot to handle for any moviegoer, especially a first-time viewer. And I'll admit, this movie always kind of appealed to the edgy crowd. Like, it always falls on those lists, like edgy films, like YouTube, Watch Mojo, whatever you want to go to. This is always one of those edgy films, and that's what appealed to me about it when I first saw it when I was like 17. However, this aspect, it's a big part of the film, but I think to solely take it on that merit alone is a huge misnomer and a mistake, and it's unfair to the movie. When the initial shock of these, like, taboo subjects kind of wears off, you have a comedy. You have a very pitch black, dark comedy, but you do have a comedy and a biting satire on 90s suburban America. I do think after this viewing, it took me a while to get there, but after this viewing, I do believe this movie is a lot more, it's more Strangers with Candy than it is Requiem for a Dream. There's very dark subject matter. There's suicides, there's perverts, there's miscreants. But the tone of the film is not dark. The tone is almost like an after-school special. You can tell by the music cues, you can tell by some of the beats of the movie and the way it flows, that he is kind of going for laughs here. For example, after John Lovitz's character Andy commits suicide, Joy goes back to work, and she tells everybody, and they had all worked together, and they're trying to remember who he is. They're saying, oh, was he the Hispanic-looking one? Was he the pockmarked one with the acne scars? And while that's an incredibly sad idea that you're going to die alone to suicide, no one remembers who you are. People that you work with spend more time with than you would a potential lover, potential relationship, or your family. And they don't even know who the fuck you are. They don't even remember you. You're kind of an inkling. That's terrifying and depressing, but the way Solondz writes it, it's going for a laugh, and it gets a laugh. It's funny. And even though this movie, after watching it many times over the last 10, 15 years, I am kind of desensitized to the more taboo subjects and the dark subjects of the movie. And I do find it a little bit lighter than I used to find it. It is a very nihilistic film. The true message of this film is not a bright one. It's not jovial. It's not funny. Billy finally comes and he achieves happiness, and it's very fleeting. It's you come and it's 2 seconds later you're back to playing Mario Kart or whatever the fuck you're doing. Alan, he finally gets his happiness. He finally meets up with the Lara Flynn Boyle Helen character after he's been harassing her on the phone, telling her he's going to do this, that, and the other to her sexually, and then she says, okay, come over. They finally meet, and nothing clicks. Joy continues to seek love in the wrong places, meeting shitty men. She really reminds me of that movie Paradise Love by Ulrich Seidel. Just looking for love in literally all of the wrong places. And then Billy's character, he's a pedophile and ends up going to jail. So in conclusion, happiness is brief if we ever even get there. We're hardwired to want what we're going to want, but we can't pick what we want. We have no free will. Everything's meaningless, and we're going to die. It is a funny movie, though. I swear it really is a funny movie. And also remember, this is 1998, and this came out before American Beauty, but I believe this movie really kind of is goofing on American Beauty. As a country, we were in this really safe status quo, like, oh, put it on my credit card, like pre-9/11 yuppie world. It's the me generation just living through their adult life with no real worries except for the veneer of like depression under all of that. And I think American Beauty looks at that through the lens of like a fucking New Yorker cartoon. Like it's that movie's for Karens and like people that care about college football. I think Happiness is like the grittier, darker, more realistic, not realistic, but more true to life in its message. It hammers that message home way better than American Beauty. But American Beauty is a great movie also. Then 9/11 happened, September 11th, 2001. Google it if you need to. And in the wake of that, we have Life During Wartime. So 11 years later, 2009, Todd Solondz decides to make a loose sequel to Happiness, Life During Wartime. And side note, he completely recast it. It's got a completely different character, or the same characters, completely different actors and actresses playing the same characters. John Lovitz's Andy becomes Paul Rubens. The Lara Flynn Boyle character Helen becomes Ali Sheedy, which is kind of some weird cosmic connection. The Joy character goes from Jane Addams to I forget her name, Shirley Henderson, something Henderson. And the most stark difference, I mean, if we're gonna like to be basic here, is the Philip Seymour Hoffman character, Alan, goes from Philip Seymour Hoffman to Michael Kenneth Williams, who was Omar on The Wire. I don't think you can get to more diametrically different actors. In Life During Wartime, Bill is about to get out of jail, finally, for molesting children, or the one that we know of. Joy is still dating shitty men, but now she's dating Alan, who was Philip Seymour Hoffman in the first movie, who was prank calling women. She's visiting the rest of the family in Florida for Timmy, Bill's other son's bar mitzvah. Bill is trying to find Billy in college to seek redemption and forgiveness for his actions. Joy is being visited by the ghost of Andy, the John Lovitz character, now played by Paul Rubens, who is kind of he's like giving her this spiel that he really misses her and everything, but he's really a ghost / hallucination that's trying to fuck her, which is kind of funny in this dark way. It is very funny. And later on, her other boyfriend, Alan, he tries to kill himself, or does kill himself, and he comes back as either a ghost or a hallucination. He's encouraging Joy to kill herself. Billy refuses to forgive Bill when they do meet up. Timmy gives the insinuation that he would be more understanding and possibly believe in prison reform, believe in his rehabilitation, and might be open to forgiving his father, but it's insinuated that he has killed himself. Bill has killed himself. Needless to say, the tone of this film and Happiness, this film is very different. It is much darker. It is more of an art film. There are a lot of interestingly composed shots compared to Happiness. Happiness really is like that strict kind of after-school special style, and this is much more stylized. The colors like bleed off the screen. There's an extra in the DVD Blu-ray where the cinematographer is talking about some kind of camera they used, because these colors, like, they pop. These colors really pop. And there are many more surreal moments in this movie. All the moments with Joy and her ghosts, hallucinations, you don't really know what they are. But either way, no one sees them but her. Those are very surreal, weird moments. And much like many of Todd Solondz' later films, in Happiness, you kind of know where you're supposed to laugh, like the music and everything, the beats, you know where you're supposed to laugh. Palindromes, you have no idea when you're supposed to be laughing, and this one, you really have no idea when you're supposed to be laughing. There are intentionally funny, cringeworthy, and everything in between. And this movie, I think, is a big meditation on forgiveness, obviously. And for the first-time viewer, again, there's a lot going on here, and there's a lot of hills to climb and a lot of things to get over before you can even begin to think about what this movie's about. But after you see it a couple times, it does kind of come into focus. And I realized that Todd Solondz uses pedophiles as the ultimate pariah. And he uses pedophiles as an analogy for the 9/11 terrorists. So those are the ultimate pariah. So we're dealing with forgiveness with the ultimate unforgivable act, either the rape or the 9/11 attacks. And this plays out with both of Bill's sons. Billy is kind of more old school. He's of the mind that these are unforgivable acts, so I can't forgive you, much like 9/11, more old school boomer type people. This is unforgivable, and they're kind of not so nice to Muslims. Timmy kind of represents more of a millennial, more of a liberal, where he believes in prison reform. He believes that sometimes terror is justified depending on what that regime would have been done by the prior regime in the United States, and what is the reason for this attack. And Joy is the only character who is actually kind of putting her money where her mouth is and dealing with convicts and dealing with these pariahs in real life. And what does she get for it? 2 of her boyfriends have killed themselves, and they're telling her to kill herself. They don't believe in forgiveness. They want eye for an eye. They want her dead. And I think the title of this film, it really gets laid out in a conversation between Joy and Helen, the Ali Sheedy character in this film. And she's blathering on about her, like, vapid Hollywood bullshit. And at one point, she just kind of, as an aside, says, like, well, there's a war going on right now. And that's kind of what we're dealing with here. The Iraq war is it still going on? It's a war, but it's not a war. Like, they're not fighting in Philadelphia. Like, if nothing's happening, there wasn't a fucking draft. And in an interview with Todd Solondz, it's on the Blu-ray, he talks about how it's a very abstract war. And much like us as Americans were living in this post 9/11 trauma at this time, the film came out in 2009, still kind of digesting that. To this family, Bill's rape was their 9/11. And he's seeking forgiveness for an unforgivable act. Billy sees no room for forgiveness for him, and Timmy kind of does, but it's insinuated that Bill kills himself, so it doesn't even matter. And in an interview that was on the Blu-ray, Todd Solondz talks about kind of the genesis of this film was right after 9/11 when Giuliani told New Yorkers, okay, go back to normal life, go shopping, don't let the terrorists win. And he just took this as obscene. And it kind of plays out in the movie where Trish, instead of dealing with her trauma, dealing with her husband's rapes and horrible actions, says, oh, we're moving to Florida now, and in hopes that this will just go away, go back to normal life, and this will just dissipate, go shopping. And I mean, I can't help but notice, like, locked in the house, fresh off furlough, unemployed, that this kind of has parallels to the COVID-19, in that there are 170,000 dead, not collectively mourned on any level, and the general consensus is this might be real, this might be a real thing. It's an abstract virus. And what do we have Trump saying? What do we have DeSantis saying? Go fucking shop. We're not gonna shut down again. The economy is too important. Shop. Everything's fine, which is absurd and obscene. Oh, look, sports. There's a touchdown. Fucking everything's fine. It'll disappear. It'll sort itself out. And again, nothing means anything. We're all dying. We're all gonna die probably sooner than later. And in the end, China will take over, and none of this will matter.
In the end, China will take over, and none of this will matter.
So thank you for watching this. Please subscribe, like, favorite, share this with everybody. I want everybody to see this shit. This one I actually kind of worked on, so share it with everybody you know. And stay hydrated. And follow me on Instagram, at Auteur Deluxe. And look me up on Letterboxd, at Auteur Deluxe. I reviewed both of these films. I rewatched them recently for this video, but I watched Life During Wartime in like November, and I reviewed it, and I just reviewed Happiness for the first time. I've seen both of these movies like 5 times, but I've never seen them sober. So that's kind of what this whole channel is really about. It's just me really hunkering down how I feel about films, and I don't know, maybe have a little fun, share a laugh. Thank you. Have a good day.
I try to forgive, I try to forget, try not